Live from TSN welcomes you to the pennant race, the Montreal Expos against the Philadelphia Phillies from Veterans Stadium. Brought to you by Petro-Canada, dealers and agents. Our energy is Canada. Thursday night in a crucial series between the Expos and the Mets at Shea Stadium, Andres Galarraga serves up a 462-foot mammoth home run, a two-run shot off of Rick Aguilera that stakes the Expos to a lead 4-1 early in the game. With the score 5-3 in the eighth inning, the Expos almost self-destruct. Jeff Reed throws the ball into center field and Darryl Strawberry moves to third base. Howard Johnson comes to the plate, hits a ground ball to Tim Wallach. Routine? Not so. He throws it away. Strawberry scores, and it's a one-run game in New York. Now the bases loaded, ninth inning. Randy St. Clair finally induces the ground ball from Gary Carter to end the game, a cliffhanger that the Expos needed, and win 5-4 over the Mets. Who says Andre Dawson isn't hitting the ball for the Expos anymore? This afternoon in Chicago, his 46th home run of the season was a two-run shot that beat the Cardinals 2-1. So the weekend starts with the Cardinals in the lead in the East by 3 over the Mets. The Mets are playing the Pirates, and the Expos are 3.5 back as they take on the Philadelphia Phillies. The pitchers in Game 1 from Philadelphia. Left-hander Neil Heaton goes for the Montreal Expos, while Don Carmen, one of 3 lefties that will oppose the Expos this weekend, starts for the Phils when we come back after this. This is Labatt Expos Baseball on TSN. Welcome back to Philadelphia, where the Expos and the Phillies are getting set to start a 3-game weekend series. A couple of weeks ago, Ken, we talked about the Expos and their plight in the National League East with 24 games to go, and you suggested they might have to win 16 to win the National League East. They've won 7, 10 to go. Do you think they'll have to win 9 of them?
9 out of 10 is going to be pretty tough. Maybe not 9. They're going to have to get some help from some of the other ball clubs, but they're going to have to be pretty close to that 9 number to get the division title won.
They'll face lefties all weekend here. They could face a couple to start in St. Louis, maybe 5 in a row. Is that an advantage or a disadvantage?
Well, the Expos have done fairly well against left-handers this year. You have Tim Raines and Mitch Webster, of course, as switch hitters. Ubi Brooks has always hit better against left-handers.
The fact that the Expos are in it is a surprise, and that's the subject of this conversation between Peter Pasquarelli of the Philadelphia Inquirer and Ken Singleton.
Peter, let's talk a little bit about the National League East and how it's gone this year. I know there have been numerous surprises, and what has surprised you most about the race this year?
I think 2 things have surprised me. One is how poorly the Phillies have played, how they haven't been a factor at all, and secondly, how well the Expos have played. I think the Expos are easily the biggest surprise in maybe the major leagues. In spring training, everyone was saying they're a 5th-place club, they're a 6th-place club, they have this problem and that problem, and they've been in the hunt all the way, and they're coming into the last week with still a chance to win, and I think they're the biggest surprise in the race.
What do you think has really turned them around more than anything else?
Well, I think the bullpen's been consistent all year. I guess that's been a big factor for them, and getting Raines back early helped them over the hump. Wallach's had a great year. Galarraga's blossomed into a quality RBI guy, and then they've got a big boost from 2 guys that no one even thought might be back, Perez and Martinez. They've really been big factors for them, and when a lot of things break right like that, and they've stayed in it all the way, and Buck's done a great job managing.
Well, the Phillies haven't exactly played the way people thought they would have played this year, and I guess on the good side of the Expo would have been the poor side as far as the Phillies are concerned.
Yeah, I think coming into the year, the Phillies looked on paper like a club that could contend. They signed Lance Parrish. They're coming off a good, strong finish. And offensively, they looked like a real powerful club, and it's been the offense that's let them down. The pitching's been mediocre, but everyone thought the pitching would be mediocre. The pitching really hasn't been any worse than anyone thought it would be. The pitching's done what I think you'd expect it to be. But offensively, they've had 4 guys who are very important, have really not good years. Glenn Wilson, Parrish, Hayes has had a so-so year. Schmidt really hasn't had one of his great years. And because of that, they really have not been a solid, consistent offensive club, and they needed to score a lot to win.
Quickly, Peter, any rumors going around as we come down towards the end of the season about off-season goings-on in baseball?
Well, the Pirates, I think, are really shopping hard for a right-handed hitter. They want a power hitter. They think they're getting close to being a quality club, and everyone who's seen them the last month would agree. Mike Marshall's name's come up. Glenn Wilson's name come up. Mel Hall's another name that's come up for the Pirates. Managerial-wise, the Cubs situation is going to be the most interesting in this division, and I just remember the name Pete Rose in Chicago. That could be a very interesting development.
Vance, I know you haven't always been happy with your playing time, but it seems as though you're going to get a lot of playing time coming in this last week of the season. A lot of left-handers here in Philadelphia, and then going to St. Louis with the predominantly left-handed staff they have. Are you guys ready? You, Fitz, and Reed Nichols?
That makes me pleased, because I've wanted to be in there when it comes down to the games that really count. And this next week is really going to be what it's all about. Is if we can go into St. Louis and play very, very well, then we got an opportunity to make up an awful lot of ground.
You've been in pressure situations before. You were the White Sox in 1983 in the playoffs. And what advice can you give to some of the players on your team, the younger players who haven't been in that situation?
Well, the best thing to do, I think, in those situations is try and relax. And if you can try and relax, that'll enable us to concentrate more at the job at hand, because if you worry about the situation that you're in, oftentimes that you put added pressure on yourself, and when you do that, it's tough to play when you are worried about the outcome. You just have to try and think of it as another ball game, although, you know, deep down inside, you know it's not.
Vance Law has been used sparingly lately, but gets in against the lefties and has a chance to contribute in the last week of the season. Against the Philadelphia Phillies, the Expos have gone 8-7 this season. Last year they went 8-10 as they come into this final weekend against the Philadelphia Phillies. And overall, you see the Expos actually have a 2-game advantage over the Phils since they came into the National League in 1969.
Take a look at the ball clubs and how they've done this year. The Expos with the 267 average, and the Philadelphia 256. Phillies have hit an awful lot of home runs. A great extra base hitting ball club. Home runs, triples, and doubles. And take a look at against left-handed pitching, the Expos 27-18. That's the best record in the league. Philadelphia Phillies at 23-22, just over 500.
One would think the Phillies might be better than that, in that they can sport a pretty good right-handed lineup against left-handed pitchers. Tonight they'll go with the lefty, as they will all weekend. Don Carmen is the starter, 1-0 against the Montreal Expos this season. And here is the lineup that Buck Rogers puts up against him. The Expos face left-handers, and their left-handed record, as you saw, is the best in the National League. Buck Rogers feels his team gets an advantage because of this lineup. Both Raines and Webster hit better right-handed. Brooks has always hit lefties well. Slumping Wallach could be better, could get a boost facing left-handed pitching. And the platoon of Nichols, Fitzgerald, and Law against lefties gets the confidence of the manager, Buck Rogers.
You mentioned Don Carmen is 1-0 against the Expos this year. He has never lost to the Expos during his career. He's 3-0 lifetime against Montreal. Here's the defense that's going to be behind him tonight. Lance Parrish will be doing the catching. Rick Shue at first. Juan Samuel having a great year at second. Ken Jackson, a rookie at shortstop. Mike Schmidt, another rookie in left field. Greg Jeltz, Von Hayes, and Glenn Wilson. And here's the first pitch of the ball game.
The Expos know that the St. Louis Cardinals lost in Chicago this afternoon 2-1, and to a man before the game said they were happy to know the result of that. It provides great incentive for them as they come into this game knowing they can close to within 3 of the Cards with a victory tonight.
It's nice to have incentive. I think they would have incentive a long time ago coming into these last few games of the season. They got to go out there and get the job done tonight.
Undoubtedly, but the Cards just haven't been losing a lot lately, and to know that they've stumbled today gives the team a boost, knowing it can pick up a game as they come into this one. Tim Raines has been hot lately. .314 in his last 10 games, but over his last 7 games has gone 11 for 24 for Buck Rogers, a .458 clip. He's hot at the perfect time. Pops this straight up and back. Parrish will come over and have a look at it, and that's all he'll get.
That one looked as though it ended about 3 rows back in the seat. You see Tim Raines smiling. He's got added life at the plate here. Good look at Don Carmen, born in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. 11-11 record. Both he and Heaton be pitching for the Expos tonight. Left-handers facing each other. Both kind of struggled of late.
An unblemished record against the Expos and 1 win this season. That came on June the 14th. He beat them 11-6. Not real pretty, but a win nonetheless. And it's a long time since Don Carmen faced this team. There's Lee Elia, the manager who took over from John Felsky, who was fired. Elia was here as a coach for Dallas Green when the Phils won the World Series in '80. He went over and managed under Green for a season, almost 2 in Chicago before he was fired.
Batting leaders here in the National League as we wind down to it. I guess you could say Tony Gwynn has this one wrapped up at 372.
Yeah.
Pedro Guerrero, it's Tim Raines. A good race for second place there with Raines and Guerrero. John Kruk of San Diego and Andres Galarraga rounds out the top 5.
Galarraga's average as low as it's been all season, but still looking pretty good amongst the National League leaders. The count is 3-2 on Tim Raines, the leadoff batter in this game from Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. And Don Carmen walks the leadoff man. Raines is aboard. So Mitch Webster comes to the plate, the second of 2 successive switch hitters. Webster .283 average overall, which is just below his .290 average of last season. It's .277 right-handed, even though that's his lower average of the 2. Buck Rogers and Bobby Winkles feel that right-handed, he's a better hitter right now.
I think they all would agree that Mitch has more power from the right-hand side. He's hit 14 home runs this year. 6 of them have come as a right-handed hitter. And of course, he and Tim Raines do not hit as much from the right-hand side as they do on the left-hand side of the plate.
Here's a ground ball over the head of Mike Schmidt. That's an artificial turf single that puts runners at first and second with nobody out as the Expos try to start an early rally.
Well, right away, the Expos have something going here with the first 2 runners getting on base. Ron Hansen talking it over with Mitch Webster. Now, the reason why Mitch was able to get this hit, Mike Schmidt has to respect his ability to bunt, and he plays in about even with the bag. Maybe with more of a power hitter, less of a threat to bunt the ball, he would have been back. That might have been a double play.
Hubie Brooks, a .255 average, but that is somewhat deceiving because Hubie has slumped for much of this season. Right now, he's on a 4-game hitting streak, modest but noteworthy in that he has been in a season-long slump, and he's 7 for his last 15. And batting .316 over his last 10 games, his bat has come to life.
I think with Hubie Brooks, more than any other player in the Expos, his fielding and hitting are closely related. When he's not hitting well, his fielding goes down. He starts to make a few errors, but when he is hitting well, his fielding seems to pick up. Shortstop being one of the most important positions on the field, you like to see Hubie swinging the bat well. That means he's not going to carry his hitting troubles out to his position with him.
Through his career, he has, shall we say, chewed up left-handed pitching. And here's an opportunity with 3 against Philadelphia this weekend and maybe 2 to start the series in St. Louis, where Brooks can contribute greatly to the Expos' cause. Count is 0-2 from Don Carmen. Runners at first and second. Carmen is outside, ball 1, 1-2. Nobody out, top of the first. Glad to have you with us from Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia tonight.
Now, Hubie has hit .300 this month. As you take a look at the defense, there's Webster at first, Raines at second. Second and short, double play depth.
Here's the 1-2 pitch from Carmen inside. Like real inside. 2-2. First and second, nobody out. We've seen that the St. Louis Cardinals have lost to the Cubs today. The Mets are playing the Pirates, and we'll have highlights of that and keep you up to date on that game from Shea Stadium. Keep you up to date on the Jays in Detroit as well. TSN takes that pennant drive right into your living room as the evening continues, and Hubie fouls one back. 2-2 is the count.
And that pitch that was inside to Hubie Brooks reminded me of the pitch that hit Tim Raines last night in New York. Rick Aguilera hit Tim right underneath the armpit as he came up and in. Raines did his best to get out of the way, but as you can see, he's down at second base in the lineup tonight.
Two-two pitch from Don Carmen. Hubie fouls one back. They're making Carmen work in the first inning.
You know, speaking of working in the first inning, Carmen had a game against Pittsburgh earlier this year where he threw 40 pitches in the first inning.
Yikes.
18 alone to Andy Van Slyke. But the amazing thing about it, he didn't give up a run. Whew. He came into the dugout after the inning was over and said, "What inning am I in?"
Hubie loses the bat and the at-bat. Strikeout number 1 for Don Carmen. Brooks is gone, 1 away.
Carmen had thrown him all hard stuff, and then he comes in with an off-speed breaking ball, and you see Hubie way out in front. Can't even hold on to the bat.
Here's Tim Wallach. His average has slipped to 297. He's only hitting 184 in his last 10 games with just 4 runs batted in. Maybe his most prolonged slump of what has been a very successful season that hasn't been dotted with slumps. He's been very consistent.
Well, Tim's average has fallen beneath 300 for the first time in a long time, and the Expos have never had 300 hitters outside of the 81 strike season, when the season was less by a third.
Runners are going. Wallach fouls it away. 0-2.
So this year they do have a chance with Raines, Galarraga, and if Wallach can get his average back up over the 300 mark. During that 81 season, it was Warren Cromartie, Andre Dawson, and Tim Raines that all hit over 300, but the season was shortened. They all 3 of them had less than 400 at-bats.
130 runs batted in for Dawson with his 2-run home run today that got him to 130. Wallach is second with a club record.
It's very interesting to watch Don Carmen. He and Heaton have similar styles. Like to move the fastball around. They throw a little bit of a sinker. They'll keep outside. Fastball they'll come inside with. And I do feel that Carmen has a better off-speed pitch than Heaton. One thing that Heaton can develop a little bit more in the future.
Close to the same age. Heaton 27, Carmen 28. And Carmen is getting himself out of a jam. Wallach goes down, the second strikeout for Don Carmen, and those runners remain at first and second. They were there with nobody out. They're there with 2 out for Andres Galarraga.
It's borderline fastball. Wallach thought it was a little bit low, but home plate umpire Dick Stello said, time for you to take the well-known walk.
Galarraga has spent much of this season with his average over 330. He's dropped to 314, respectable, but not where it's been most of the year. He's been very consistent until this month. He seems to have slipped, hitting 222 for his last 10 games.
Maybe it's pennant race pressure.
Didn't seem to bother him last night, though, as he snapped out of it and hit a mammoth home run off Aguilera.
What they say was about 462 feet.
3-0 pitch, swinging away.
It's a $10 cab ride, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can see Carmen burying that fastball in the inner half of the plate, trying to make the Expo hitters use the bat. You have to be a little bit quicker to hit those inside pitches. What I mean is use the bat. They have to swing the bat, really make an effort to hit balls that are on the inner half. Pitches that are on the outer half of the plate, you can just lay the barrel of the bat, almost just like putting the bat on the ball. You have to swing the bat quickly to get to the inside pitches. Now the target is outside. Raines diving back. He and Juan Samuel. Samuel coming over, trying to keep Raines a little bit close, and he has a little bit of Philadelphia real estate on his uniform. There's a good look at Samuel. Tremendous offensive year, and his defense has picked up this year too.
1-1 count on Galarraga. First and second, 2 out in the top of the first. Fouls one back, and the count is 1-2.
Now, every once in a while, in a situation like this, when you come up with men on base, Galarraga, I didn't see him do it, but I used to do this. The pitcher would fake a pick-off throw to a base, or actually throw over to a base. I would kind of glance back and see where the catcher was sitting. You know, they don't like you to do that too often, because if they catch you, something's going to come up and in around your head. But you can take a little bit of glance out of the corner of your eye, and Galarraga might have known that last pitch was supposed to be out over the plate. Might have been able to hit it a little bit better instead of fouling it off. Just something that you might mention it to him after the game. Hitter needs all the edges he can get up there. Pitcher knows what he's trying to do with the ball. Now he comes back inside and misses.
2-2. The count evens up from Don Carmen to Andres Galarraga. Expos in a terrific position to score first. Have 86 wins this season. 60 of their wins have come when they've scored the first run of a game. Seems to hold some significance this season. Getting the early jump. 2-2 count remains on Andres Galarraga. There's the view from the euchre seats, if you will, at Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia, and there are a few extras if you'd like to drop over tonight. Raines at second, Webster at first. Galarraga with a 2-2 count struck him out after walking Raines, giving up a single to Webster. Don Carmen strikes out the side. Brooks, Wallach, and Galarraga, and the Phillies are coming up. This is Labatt Expos Baseball on TSN. The Cardinals have already lost, and at Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia, the Expos, if they're scoreboard watching, know that the Mets are now down 2-0.
They have Mike Bielecki on the mound for the Pirates tonight, so if he could pitch anything like the game he pitched against the Expos about a week and a half ago, Mets might be in a little bit of trouble.
Neil Heaton, the left-hander, is the pitcher tonight for the Montreal Expos. The Phillies are hitting .256 as a team, 10th in the National League. Predominantly right-handed batting order, with the exception of the left-handed hitting Vaughn Hayes. Phils are 23-22 against left-handed pitching. Newcomers to this lineup are the left fielder Greg Jelks up from AAA, the shortstop Ken Jackson up from AA, and of course you know the rest, particularly Mike Schmidt and Juan Samuel, the people to watch.
Defense behind Neil Heat tonight. Andres Galarraga at first, Vance Law at second, Ubi Brooks, Tim Wallach, Raines, Nichols, Webster, and Mike Fitzgerald behind the plate tonight.
The leadoff man is Juan Samuel, who's having a simply sensational season. For the Phillies, he's hit 28 homers. He's already stolen 35 bases and is very close to joining that exclusive 30-30 club. Howard Johnson and Darryl Strawberry, Eric Davis are there this year.
You don't see many second basemen among the big numbers in home runs and RBIs, and Samuel. You heard Peter Pasquarelli before the game say that a number of the Phillies are having off years, such as Glenn Wilson, Lance Parrish, even Mike Schmidt. Doesn't feel Mike Schmidt has had one of his better seasons, but Juan Samuel has certainly done the job with the bat for the Phillies this year. Very dangerous hitter.
And he can fly to go along with that. Neil Heaton gets a strong start as he gets the dangerous Samuel on strikes. Strikeout number 1 for Heaton.
Now, one thing about Samuel, he is more or less of a free swinger, although he's walked 60 times this year, which represents a career high. So you can get him to chase, and Neil Heaton with a perfect pitch there, well ahead on the count, comes in with a fastball just out of the strike zone. Juan Samuel is gone.
Free swinger, all right. That's 151 strikeouts this season for Juan Samuel, and hard to imagine he could crowd all of those in the way he's been hitting with all his home runs and triples.
Well, he struck out more than anybody in baseball over the last 4 seasons.
Vaughn Hayes is playing in center field tonight. He was a center fielder before he was dealt in a 5-for-1 deal to the Phillies from Cleveland, and he's back in center field tonight with Rick Shue playing at first base.
Hayes not having quite the year he had last year,
but still 21 home runs, 82 runs batted in, nothing to sneeze at.
36 doubles. Look out, up and in, which puts him only 4 behind the league leader Tim Wallach. And last year Hayes led the league in doubles with 46. It marked a 15th time in the last 16 years that a player that was based on artificial turf led the National League in doubles. There's a fly ball to left field. Tim Raines. This ball is slicing back and out of play. Raines can't, unless he has a ticket, he won't be able to catch that one.
Tigers have jumped on Toronto early tonight, 1-0. What a great start to that series. The place was jammed. Exhibition Stadium in Toronto last night. A very interesting first game, but the Jays have lost Tony Fernandez for the rest of the season, and that hurts. We'll be bringing you highlights of that game, by the way, as the evening progresses. We'll keep you on top of the pennant races everywhere tonight on TSN. Here, there's no score. Bottom of the first, 1 away.
Here the Blue Jays plan to use Manny Lee in that shortstop position for the remainder of the season. Anytime you lose a player of a Tony Fernandez caliber, this is a high pop-up to the infield. Galarraga ranging into foul territory, gives away to Vance Law, and the ball comes back into fair territory, and Vance makes the catch. I was saying about Tony Fernandez, certainly it's going to hurt the Blue Jays. Lose a player of that caliber. What would the Tigers be without Alan Trammell this year? And
Tony's the Expos be without Tim Wallach. You can make it.
Exactly. But when the Blue Jays switched Tony Fernandez from the leadoff spot to the third spot in the order, that's when they really started to roll.
Well, Manny Lee's got a chance to be a star. Gets to take over in the clutch. Speaking of stars, here's Mike Schmidt. People talk about a season that hasn't been great, and yet he's still over 100 RBIs. He still has over 30 home runs, and he hits that one foul. It was extra bases all the way, but cut foul. Mike Schmidt at 527 and counting, and I wonder if at the end of this week the counting stops. What do you think? Is he finished?
Well, evidently he's a free agent at the end of the year, and he and the Phillies are going to have some negotiations to go through. Mike said he's not going to take any less money than he's making now. He will just retire from baseball. And the way the owners have been trying to cut players' salaries the last couple of years, cut back. Talking to Peter Pasquarelli before the game, he says this could be ugly.
Schmidt fouls one off. 0-2 is the count. Neil Heaton struck out Samuel, popped up Hayes.
I remember playing with the Expos early in my career in the early 70s when Mike Schmidt came up, and he could be pitched to. There was no doubt about it. He had a good quick bat. He had the power, but he had a lot of holes at the plate. Good thing Dick Stello doesn't have a hole in that mask. He almost had one, courtesy of that foul ball off Mike Schmidt's bat. But anyway, Schmidt really developed as a hitter. Was able to, every hitter, you cannot cover the whole plate, but if you have a quick swing like a Schmidt does, you can cover most of it, especially when he's looking in one area. All the big home run hitters, when they look inside or they look out over the plate and they get that pitch, the quick swing and the power that a Mike Schmidt has, that's how you get 527 home runs.
Fouls another one back. The count from Neil Heaton is 1-2. Schmidt hit 30 home runs this season for the 13th time. Hank Aaron did it 15 times, and Schmidt and Babe Ruth, decent company, have 13 30 home run seasons each.
Well, Schmidt tied Eddie Matthews' National League record this year as you look at Lee Ilya in the dugout. 9 seasons in a row he's hit 30 or more home runs, but the amazing thing about that, during the strike season of 1981, hit 32 home runs that season.
Imagine what he'd have hit. Ooh, it's scary to think of, isn't it?
Well, I was in an American League. Didn't matter to me. What else is going on in Philadelphia? Anything on the sports scene? I mean, National Football League. No games this weekend. Hockey season hasn't started yet. The Flyers haven't started exhibition games.
Training camp, yeah.
But Philadelphia, one of the better sports towns in the United States.
There's a concert next door. U2 is in town. Two-two pitch. Schmidt. Bouncing ball. Law backed up on it. Guns it over. A one-hopper, and it's not in time. Law had time, but he bounced it up.
Mike Schmidt beats out an infield hit. And look where Vance Law is playing. On the right side of second base. And now he has a long throw. He's throwing from almost short center field. Mike Schmidt beats it out for the base hit. Umpire Eric Gregg down at first making the call. Eric, a native from Philadelphia.
2-out single for Schmidt. And Lance Parrish, who, but for his desire to move on, could have been playing in Toronto tonight in the heat of an American League East Championship Series, or possible championship playoff.
One of the reasons he wanted to come to Philadelphia, he's good friends with Mike Schmidt and Glenn Wilson. Parrish has had a rude awakening to the to the National League.
Ground ball, and Galarraga will handle it easily. The Phillies strand one after the single by Schmidt. Neil Heaton has a good start. No score after one in Philadelphia. This is Labatt Expos Baseball on TSN. Now let's go to TSN Control for a sports update. The Montreal Expos hit .254 as a team. You see they're considerably above that this year. They've hit more home runs, scored more runs. Their extra inning record is incredible, and their earned run average is not as good. But they've won the one-run ball games, the extra inning ball games, scored more runs, and are in considerably better position than they were last year at this time.
Chicago. Andre Dawson's 46th homer, 2-run shot in the first inning off Bob Forsch. He hung him a breaking ball. Chicago beat St. Louis 2-1. Scott Sanderson, former Expo, the winner.
Last year, after 152 games, Montreal was at 576 wins and the same number of losses. They were fourth and 23.5 games behind the New York Mets. Now they're 3.5 out as this game got underway. Philadelphia last year 80-73, a better record than they have this season, but they were 20 out in second spot. This year they're 1 over 500 and 13.5 out in fourth. Don Carmen working in the top of the second inning against Reed Nichols. Count is 2-0.
Reed Nichols, pretty good job against left-handers. 288.
Haven't been many times this season when Reed has been in ball games day after day after day, and that's what will happen this weekend as left-handers start tomorrow and Sunday, and possibly in both ends of a doubleheader in St. Louis on Tuesday.
Jimmy, you were talking about the Phillies and their season. Their season has gone very similar to last year, except for one thing. They got off to a very poor start last year in '86, as they did this year. They fell well back early in the season and then made a prolonged rush and passed 4 teams in the standings to finish second to the Mets, who had a runaway year on their way to the World Championship. Well, this year the Phillies made a bit of a run in the same style, but they couldn't carry through as teams like the Expos and the Pirates had improved considerably, and the Phillies just couldn't catch them in the standings.
You know, they made the rush and they got within single digits of the St. Louis Cardinals. They got up to 9 games out, and I think what really killed them is San Francisco came in here in the middle of that and swept them, and that was it. They didn't recover. Don Carmen now has 4 strikeouts. They've come consecutively, and there's 1 away in the second. In New York at Shea Stadium, Mike Bielecki is the pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Darryl Strawberry is the batter. It's a fly ball, and it's a sacrifice fly that'll score a run. Lenny Dykstra hustles home, and the Mets are on the board, trailing the Pirates 2-1. And it's real early. Carmen pitching now to Vance Law. Law's only had 14 at-bats in his last 10 games. He's only played in 5 of the last 10 and only started 4 of them.
Well, you heard what he had to say at the top of the show. He said, I'm ready to go. Here's what it's all about. Get in there and try and make a contribution. Vance's average has gone down a little bit, 280. Another breaking ball from Carmen. It's a pitch that he has that Heaton doesn't have. Heaton has that hard slider. Likes to keep inside. It's getting down near the end of the season here in Philadelphia, and they will fight for souvenirs here. This is Rocky's hometown, isn't it?
There's strikeout number 5 for Carmen. Two away. Second inning. Back to New York. Kevin McReynolds, the batter against Mike Bielecki, who won't pitch 6 innings of perfect ball against the Mets. McReynolds takes him deep. A 2-run shot off of Bielecki. McReynolds has been in a bit of a slump. Hits the round tripper. And the Mets have the lead.
Big Apple shows up. It was a changeup. Got in the middle of the plate. That changeup he used against the Expos in that, you mentioned that 6 1/3 innings, was very effective. That one he just put in the middle of the plate. McReynolds ran it out of the park. Fitzgerald flies out to Glenn Wilson, and the Expos are effectively gone here in the 2nd inning. Don Carmen gets the job done.
Expos have 1 hit through 2. Carmen has struck out 5 and is cruising along. Middle of the 2nd, no score. This is Labatt Expos Baseball on TSN. You saw the comparison of the Expos previous year to this one. How about the Phillies? Now they have better hitting, have hit more home runs, haven't scored as many, considerably fewer actually. Haven't struck out as many times, and their ERA is higher. That's been a real sore spot.
Well, I mentioned that the pitching would be mediocre this year. They expected more offense. Sometimes the offense can balance for the lack of pitching. If you can win a lot of games 11-9 during the course of a season. This year the Phillies have not scored as many runs.
Glenn Wilson will lead things off against Neil Heaton. Bottom of the 2nd inning, no score at Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. Cardinals lost today. The Expos 3.5 back. The Mets are 3 back. Ground ball. Wallach was there but couldn't get his glove on it. Base hit for Glenn Wilson. The leadoff man's aboard.
Tim Wallach arranging to his left. Hard ground ball to Hopper. Reaches for it. The ball just stays low on him. Doesn't come up. On into left field for a base hit.
The original angle, it looked like he had more of a chance at it than it did on that angle. So there's a man aboard and nobody out with the batter Rick Shue playing first base. The heir apparent, if you will, to Mike Schmidt. If Schmidt does decide to pack it in after this season, Rick Shue is a man who could benefit.
Well, it's interesting because when Shue first came to the major leagues, Schmidt switched over to first base. Now they're back in their original positions.
Runner was going. Line drive to the left fielder Raines, and he'll throw the ball in and chase Glenn Wilson back to first. 1 away.
So Mike Schmidt's over at third, and Shue has had to learn how to play first base.
But should Schmidt fail, Shue could step in.
Number 45, left fielder Greg Jelks.
Here's one of the newcomers that the Phillies are looking at, Greg Jelks. Playing in the outfield tonight, although that is not a position that he normally plays.
Jelks was recalled from Maine on August the 19th. Batted .266, had some power, 23 homers, 77 RBIs, but his normal position is third. We're going to have to watch and see how he does in the outfield tonight.
The Expos are 13-9 for the month of September as Glenn Wilson stands at first base. And there's an interesting pattern that's developed amongst their starters. 11 of the 13 September wins have been recorded by the top 3 starters. Martinez has 4, Perez has 5, Bryn Smith has 2, and of the other 2, one was by Floyd Yeomans, who's not in the rotation, the other by the bullpen with Martinez starting. Jelks slices one down the line for extra bases. It went off the facade. Wilson, round second, is held up at third. A fan touched it, and that'll hold Wilson at third base and Jelks to a double.
Some pirate Jerry Davis. Now watch the ball as it goes down the right field line. A fan will actually come in contact with the ball, which will halt play. Jelks will be credited with a double. See the fan reach out trying for a souvenir. Now the Expos might have gotten a bit of a break there.
I think they did.
The ball was just hung up right there. Hughson could have scored all the way from first base. With fan interference, he has to go back to third. So second and third, and another rookie comes to the plate for the Philadelphia Phillies. Will be Kenny Jackson.
.250 average, somewhat deceiving, and because he's only had 8 major league at bats. He's 2 for 8. So Neil Heaton in a jam for the first time with runners at second and third and just 1 out in the bottom of the second.
24-year-old Kenny Jackson's the hitter. It's a breaking ball outside, ball 1. Buck Rogers looking on.
So of the 9 losses for Buck Rogers' team in the month of September, 7 have been suffered by the 4th and 5th starters. Heaton, Yeomans when he was in, Sebra, Charlie Lee.
That gives you an idea of how well Dennis Martinez and Pascual Perez have been pitching. High fastball.
And the best example, Ken, of what it's done for this team, and to the team, is last week. Martinez, Perez, and Smith win. They close to within 2 of the Cardinals. The 4th and 5th spot, Heaton and Sebra lose, and they fall 4 back. The 4th and 5th spot has been a trouble spot for Buck Rogers' team.
Well, Heaton's had problems for a while. He hasn't won going back to 9 starts.
July 30th. Now had 9 tries, you're right, at victory number 13. This is the 10th. There's the catalyst, or one of them. He and Martinez. Pascual Perez you're looking at will work on 3 days rest tomorrow. Buck Rogers juggles his rotation so that he can have Perez on 4 days rest to pitch in St. Louis. 2-1 count on Jackson. Waits on this one. Ground ball to Vance Law. A run will score as Law goes to first base. The Phillies lead 1-0.
So Kenny Jackson picks up his 2nd major league run batted in as Jelks now moves over to third.
Number 42.
Jelks has a cousin, plays football for the University of Alabama, running back.
Two out. Runner on third base now is Greg Jelks, who advanced as well on the ground out.
Don Carmen, not one of your better hitting pitchers, although this year at 091, Carmen got his first hit, his first run, and his first RBI all this season.
What a relief.
And he also walked twice in a game for the first time. So he's starting to add a little offense to his overall game.
First couple of years in the majors, he didn't get a lot of at-bats because he was working as a reliever. That's not to say he would have done a lot with them anyway. Count is 2 balls and a strike.
And Mike Fitzgerald, I believe he says the ball hit the bat or tipped the bat. He's having that argument with Dick Stello behind the plate, but he won't get the call. And he turns around once again. Not too many times.
Best leave it alone soon.
When the umpire whips that mask off, then it's time to be quiet.
2-1 pitch. Runner at third. There's the strike. 2-2. Jelks at third base. 1 run is in. Phillies lead 1-0. Mets are out front. 3-2 in the second in New York against Pittsburgh. Fly ball, shallow center. Reed Nichols on rushing makes the catch. The Phillies score first in the second. A ground ball by Jackson scores Glenn Wilson from third base, and the Phillies have a 1-0 lead. This is Labatt Expos Baseball on TSN. Now let's go to TSN Control again for another sports update. To come to this figure of run production, take runs, add RBIs, and subtract home runs. And there's the figure you come up with. Eric Davis leading the National League with 183. Ozzie Smith without home runs. having a terrific season. Not surprisingly, a couple of Cardinals in there, and they're leading their division.
Take a look at the American League leaders, and you see George Bell, who's leading the major leagues at 194. Dwight Evans having a good year. If he'd had this type of year last season, Dwight Evans would have been the MVP.
Maybe of the World
League.
Series, too.
Exactly. Alan Trammell, Wade Boggs, and Wally Joyner. Wally World out in California.
Angels spend all that time signing players from other teams who were making big money in the twilight of their career, and now they're starting to let them go.
Doug DeCinces, they let Doug DeCinces go. And one of the reasons they let Doug go, they released him just the other day, is because the Angels would have had to buy out his contract next year for $140,000 if they chose not to pick up the option. So the Angels chose to release Doug, thereby getting out of paying the buyout, and he's gone. Doug DeCinces is thinking about suing the California Angels.
Yes, he's steamed.
Said they had no intention of keeping him throughout this whole season. Now, he's not having his best offensive year, and he is getting a little older. So there's a good offensive year. Neil Heaton.
13th hit of the season for Heaton, who leads Expo pitchers. 185 average coming in. And Heaton helps his own cause by getting aboard as the leadoff man. There's a bonus.
Shortstop Kenny Jackson playing towards the hole at third and short. Had no chance to get this one. A ground ball single into center field.
The Labatt player of the game for the Montreal Expos will receive a Boulevard Quartz watch. Nobody tells the time in as many beautiful ways as Boulevard Quartz. Thin quartz, accurate and guaranteed for 2 full years. See them now at your Boulevard jeweler. Phillies lead 1-0. Top of the 3rd inning. Neil Heaton is aboard. I'm Jim Hughson with Ken Singleton. Glad to have you along tonight. We'll be in St. Louis next week. Wednesday and Thursday night. The Cards Expos showdown. Raines comes back up, walked in the first and was stranded. Up and in. Ball 1.
We heard Buck Rogers say that Tim Raines feels that he and Mitch Webster are better hitters from the right-hand side of the plate. Take a look at the runs leader. Eric Davis, Gwynn, Raines, Coleman, Samuel. Raines this year could possibly have his 2nd highest career total in runs scored. He scored 133 runs earlier in his career, but this year, after missing a month of the season.
Well, it's not just a coincidence that Wallach behind him is having a career season driving in runs.
Galarraga having a good year with the RBIs. Should finish over 90, near 100. I was saying about Raines and his right-handed hitting, as you take a look at Neil Heaton at first being held on by Rick Shue. Raines is hitting .403 as a right-handed hitter, and even .300 left-handed.
Difference in at-bats, 350 left-handed, 145 now right-handed. About half, 2-1.
Usually during the season, a switch hitter can look, if he plays every day, 2-1 or 2.5 to 1 at-bats left-handed to right-handed.
This one should drop into the seats. Rick Shue goes over to have a look. Count is 3-2. Nobody out and a runner on first base. Expos won last night in a game that was perhaps typical of the way they've played in the last 2 months. They flirted with disaster. They almost kicked it away. But in the end, they won yet another 1-run victory.
And the bullpen by committee was well evident in that ball game. A looper into short right center. Wilson, a long run, makes the catch.
Good run by Wilson to make the catch, all right. 1 away. We're going back to Shea Stadium in New York. Bottom of the second inning. Lenny Dykstra. Nails is at the plate. Goes the other way. Just over the head of the shortstop. I think that's Pedrique. And Rafael Santana digs in and scores. The Mets have a 4-2 lead over the Pirates in the bottom of the second. Here it's 1-0 for the Phillies. We're in the top of the third. Neil Heaton's aboard with 1 out as Mitch Webster comes up. Count is 0-1. The streaking Webster was put on the pines by Buck Rogers on Monday. He had gone 7 games at a 190 average into that game, and he sat out as he hits a high fly ball into left center. 3 converge on it, and the left fielder Jelks makes the catch for the second out. Since sitting down on Monday, though, Webster's gone 5 for 11, so he's picked it up.
Back to Shea Stadium, and everything we have now with Met highlights is Tim Teufel at the plate. Bielecki gets a pitch on the inner half, and he jerks it into left field for a base hit. Here's Dykstra coming into third, coming around third in the score, and the Mets are 5-2.
May not be long before they say bye, Lecky.
What was that? Before they say what?
I don't know that it bears repeating. Mike, so long, Lucky.
Eubie Brooks looking for his 100th hit of the year. It's a breaking ball in the outside corner for a strike.
This corniness is contagious, folks. 1-1 on Hubie. Don Carmen has surrendered 2 hits. One of the hitters, Heaton, is aboard. 2 away. The Expos got 2 aboard with nobody out in the first and stranded the runners. Raines and Webster. Heaton was aboard with nobody out. Raines and Webster have flied out. 1-2 pitch to Brooks off the end of the bat. Foul. Hubie turned 31 yesterday. Felt better about his birthday, I'm sure, and that his September has been much better than his August. Heaton's on the way. Brooks hits this one into left, and it's right into the waiting glove of Greg Jelks. Expos strand another. They're 3rd through 3. Phillies lead by 1. This is Labatt Expos Baseball on TSN. Let's check the pennant races. San Francisco up by 7. Whoever's going to play in the National League Championship Series from the East best book a block of seats to San Francisco.
Candlestick Park. First time since 1971 the Giants will have made the playoffs. Over in the American League East, Toronto and Detroit locked into it. Jays lead the season series. You can see 4 games to 3, so they've been close all year long. Game and a half. Over to the American League West.
Minnesota by 6 over Oakland. And it looks like the Twins, Kirby and the boys, will be going to a championship series.
Twins have been amazing in their home ballpark. They've won, what, 54, 55 times in the Metrodome. Best home record in baseball. At least one Expo fan here in Philadelphia.
It's still hard to think of the Twins competing with the Tigers or the Blue Jays in a championship series.
I'm sure they'll show up.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Maybe in their home park, if they can bash enough out of the park. It's where the other teams can become vulnerable.
Well, they have 3 30 home run hitters. Brunansky, was it Herbeck, and there's one more. And
Gagne?
Gaetti. And Kirby Puckett is right on the doorstep. So the last team to do that was the Los Angeles Dodgers. With Ron Say, Dusty Baker, Garvey.
They also can give up a few, though, with their pitching staff, and Blyleven in particular. But if Viola gets hot, Smithson gets hot, Joe Niekro's experience pays off, and if the Tigers and Jays beat the heck out of each other, maybe.
Well, I think the situation would have helped a team like the Twins if the playoffs were limited to 5 games. Now they've gone to 7.
Yeah.
So I think it's a better overall test of what a ball club can do.
Cream rises to the top.
Exactly.
This is Juan Samuel to lead things off in the bottom of the 3rd against Neil Heaton.
Speaking of the cream rising to the top, Samuel needs only 2 more home runs to become the first middle infielder in history to have 30 home runs and over 30 steals in the same season. You can see his triples. He's hit more triples than anybody in baseball in the last 4 years.
Mitch Webster led the National League with 13 last season, so 15 is a pretty good total.
Samuel, good all-around ball player. Does strike out a lot, does make some errors in the field, but as I said, his fielding has picked up. Hubie Brooks, speaking of picking up, makes a good play.
Ooh, real close too.
Eric Gregg punches him out. Hubie with the 360 move right through the middle. Looks like he's on skates. Turns around, a good, strong, accurate throw. Galarraga with the stretch. And they get the speedy Samuel by a step.
Good play. You talked about it earlier. Hubie's hitting picks up, and so did his fielding. There have been times this season when that play would make every Expo fan hold their breath. And maybe it did tonight, but Hubie came through.
Very important to get a man like Samuel out in that situation. He's like Tim Raines, the Tim Raines of the Philadelphia Phillies. Started a lot of things with his stolen bases down at first. Von Hayes with a good eye at the plate. Always up there among the league leaders in base on balls. In fact, he's second to Jack Clark. Clark with 136, Hayes with 119. Interesting play with Jack Clark today in that game in Chicago. Ground ball foul.
Now, he didn't start in the game. He came in as a pinch hitter, didn't he?
Came in as a pinch hitter. Wisey Herzog sent him up there. The Cardinals down by a run in the 9th inning. Jack Clark took one swing, fell over, and walked back into the dugout, and that was that. Didn't finish the at-bat. He had been taking some batting practice, trying to get ready for this last few games against the Expos and the Mets, but it doesn't look like he'll be able to go.
The Cardinals seem to become such a one-dimensional team without Clark. They've got to steal and hit and run.
They scratch and claw for their runs, and hopefully they'll get a well-pitched ball game so they don't need 6 or 7 runs to win a game.
But you take the 3-run home run out of their repertoire with Clark gone. Hayes walks. That's the first base on balls given up by Neil Heaton. And so there's a runner aboard with 1 away for Mike Schmidt.
Hayes 120.
And they're not pitching around him or giving him the same sort of treatment that Clark gets.
That with Mike Schmidt coming up next. 32 home runs.
Schmidt's killed the Expos a few times. He is the all-time leader in home runs hit at Olympic Stadium. At his 2,000th hit against the Expos this season.
He's hit over 50 home runs against the Expos during his career. But he has worn out the Chicago Cubs. Although this year,
look out, way back, center field, home run, number 528, and the Phillies have a 3-0 lead.
I was going to say, Mike Schmidt has worn out the Cubs, although this year he hadn't hit a home run at Wrigley Field for the first time since 1974. But he's had over 75 home runs against the Chicago Cubs, over 50 against the Expos.
And now 33 for the season.
Belt tie out over the plate. Mike Schmidt in his younger days would have tried to pull that ball, maybe hit a ground ball, but he's adjusted, become a great home run hitter, power to all parts of the ballpark, and that one was just about dead center field, out of here. So the total rise to 528.
That's the 25th home run surrendered by Neil Heaton. That leads the Expos staff. More importantly, his team is now down 3-0. Lance Parrish. It's a foul ball. Lance grounded out to the first baseman. Galarraga in the first inning. Count is 1-1.
It's a good look at Lance Parrish, one of the stronger men in baseball. It's bad it's a little cool tonight. You could, those cut off sleeves, you can look at that ammunition he's got inside his shirt. He's got some guns in there. Buck Rogers, for the game, had mentioned how you have to jump on teams like this. Don't give them any incentive to come out and beat you. You've got to score first and get some runs on the board. Phillies, of course, are counting the days till the season's over.
The other thing on Buck Rogers' mind tonight has to be Heaton. The last 2 nights in New York, Rogers has had to go to the bullpen. He had to use a lot of bullpen committee members last night. He wants 6 or 7 out of Heaton tonight. He wants to avoid going out there early. Strikeout number 2 for Heaton. 2 away.
Goes to the breaking ball on Parrish. Pitch, swing and a miss. Ball breaking down sharply in the strike zone.
Glenn Wilson singled in the second and scored. Got the Phillies' first run. Wilson of the howitzer arm, perhaps the finest arm in the outfield, and sometimes too fine. In fact, he's been known to, from the outfield, deep in the outfield, overthrow home plate. Did it once when we watched him this season. Threw from right field, trying to cut off a runner at the plate, and he threw it right into the Expo dugout on the fly and going a million miles an hour. Ground ball for Brooks. That's the side, but the damage is done by the man who usually does it. Only 1 hit after a base on balls in the third, but the hit was a long one. Mike Schmidt's 33rd of the season, the 528th of his career. Phillies lead 3-0. This is Labatt Expos Baseball on TSN. Now let's go back to TSN Control for another sports update. Back in Philadelphia, where the Phillies lead the Expos 3-0, and Tim Wallach is the leadoff hitter in the top of the 4th inning. Wallach hitting under 200 for the month of September. He's been the leader on this team and has fallen under 300. I went to Bobby Winkles, his hitting instructor, before the game and asked him if he noticed anything about Tim and the reasons for this slide.
Well, I'll tell you what, Tim Wallach has had a career season, Jim, and I don't think anybody can ever deny that he's one of the candidates for the most valuable player in this league. As of late, he has not hit as well as he did prior. He's fallen from over 300 to about 298, something like that, going into this ball game. I think that Tim Wallach keeps things from us that we should know, and that is that his ankle is swollen up. I think most of the fans know he's going to have an operation after the season is over. I don't think he tells Buck when he is hurting, and I think he's playing hurt right now. So I don't think he's putting good pressure on his left foot, and I think that is one of the reasons why he's not hitting as well at this point. Maybe with facing 3 or 4 left-handers in a row, it'll help him some, but as we all say on the Montreal Expos, Tim Wallach is a horse, and his word is, I'm in there for 9.
He's out of there right now. Strikeout number 6 for Don Carmen. The leadoff man is gone in the 4th. Wallach is 0 for 2 and is now struck out twice tonight.
You see him heading up that tunnel right there. That leads back to the clubhouse, and usually when hitters do that after a strikeout, that means there's going to be some noise down there.
Hurricane winds come back out. Galarraga struck out in the 1st. And is behind 0-1 here.
Carmen has kept his fastball down in the strike zone. His breaking ball has also been very effective, mixing his pitches well, keeping the Expo hitters off balance this far in the game. This ball's well hit to right field. Glenn Wilson goes after it like he has a shot at it. He does, and puts it away.
Just a long out. This telecast is protected by copyright and is intended solely for the non-commercial entertainment of our viewing audience. Any use, reproduction, or distribution in whole or in part of the pictures or descriptions herein contained without the expressed written consent of the Montreal Expos Baseball Club Limited and the Sports Network is strictly prohibited. Score is 3-0. Philadelphia leading the Montreal Expos. Top of the 4th inning. 2 away for Reed Nichols. The Expos haven't been hitting the ball as well in this month of September as they have throughout the season. Their average for the season up around 270, has been there most of the year. But for September, they're batting just 250, 224 in their last 10 games. And they're 5-5 in those 10.
Look at Bob Seber loosening up in the bullpen, getting down towards the bottom part of the Expo lineup, and the Expos can put a few men on base. Buck might go to the bench for a hitter. This one is popped back, should be out of play. Parrish coming back to the screen. That's about 8-9 rows back. Reed Nichols, 288 batting average coming into today's game. Hit 302 for Boston in 245 at-bats back in 1982. Buck looks on. But in Boston, everybody should hit well at Fenway Park, if you ask me.
2-2 count on Reed Nichols. 2 away. Here's our location back up behind home plate. It's a chilly night. It's 13 degrees. But it's sort of the kind of night you expect in September in the East. Three and two out. 3-0. Philadelphia leading. Nichols hits one hard onto left field. Jelks back and makes the catch at the track. They hit a couple of long ones off Carmen, but they're just long outs, and he has a 1-2-3 4th inning. Carmen's given up 2 hits through 4, and his team leads 3-0 coming to bat in the bottom of the 4th. This is Labatt Expos Baseball on TSN. This day in baseball, September the 25th, 1956. Al Magli of the Brooklyn Dodgers pitched a 5-0 no-hitter against the Philadelphia Phillies. It's 31 years ago. What is that you've got?
Well, as you can see, I got Jim Hughson on my left, and it's our stats man tonight, Spuds Mather. Oh, there he is.
Jeff Mather, our original party animal. 3-0. The Philadelphia Phillies lead to the bottom of the 4th inning. Rick Shue, Greg Jelks, Ken Jackson due up against Neil Heaton. Oh, and 1. Shue flied out in the 2nd.
As we said, Shue learning a new position. He's played 27 games at third this year and 17 over at first. He hadn't played first base since high school.
Neil Heaton's career high for wins is 12. He's matched that. He originally got to 12 in 1984 with Cleveland, but he got to 12 this season on the 30th of July. Hit hard by Shue to left center, way back at the track and caught at the wall. Reed Nichols makes the play and had to hustle back to catch that. And Larry Bernarth wants to talk to Neil Heaton.
When I first joined the Orioles, Jim, they had a pitching coach, George Bamberger. And Bamberger, on plays like this, the outfielder would race back, make a great catch. As you see Reed Nichols making the play, he'd come out to the mat and tell the pitcher, Way to get him out. Great pitch. I don't know if Bear's saying that to Neil Heaton, but Heaton said still an out, isn't it?
Perhaps making sure that Bob Sebra gets adequate time to warm up in case he's needed. Looks like he's ready as is. Taking a drink, coming off the mound in the bullpen. Sebra would figure to be the long man tonight out of the pen. Will only come in if Heaton can't get through to the 6th or 7th, and Buck Rogers doesn't want to pass the baton to his late men, late relievers, until that time. Sebra would figure to be a man to bridge a gap. Heaton, in his last 43 innings over the 9 starts that he's tried to get his 13th win, has given up 67 hits in those 43 innings and 31 runs.
Fastball over the inside corner, jumps ahead of Jelks, who shouldn't be confused with Steve Jeltz, who has played shortstop for the Phillies in the past.
K as opposed to T. There's another long fly ball way back, not quite as far as the one hit by Shu. Make your heart beat a little faster in the dugout. 2 out.
Don't they have school? Well, tomorrow's Saturday, yeah.
Tomorrow's Saturday.
Come on out, have a good time, kids. Pee Wee Herman. They might sleep late and miss Pee Wee Herman tomorrow.
Not likely.
I'm not going to miss it. I'll be up early.
Here's Ken Jackson, who grounded out to drive in a run in the 2nd inning. Got the first run. It's 3-0 Philadelphia now. 2 away, bottom of the 4th inning. 3-0 Philadelphia leading.
Kenny Jackson from Wascom, Texas. Now, Texas is a big state. I have no idea where Wascom, Texas is. Ooh. I believe it hit him in the shoulder.
Mike Fitzgerald will take the precaution of going out towards Heaton to throw the ball back as Jackson trots down to first, just in case he had a mind to go after Heaton.
Just above about in the shoulder blade area.
Good reaction to get his shoulder and his arm up.
Be surprised how quickly you can move when you find yourself in danger of physical harm. I've had him come close, but I'd never got hit hard. In the head, that is. You know, they could hit you in the leg or the back. You can take that. Start getting around that head. That's dangerous territory.
Don Carmen flying out to center field to end the 2nd inning. Up with a runner on first base here in the 4th and 2 out. Time.
You know, by hitting Jackson and putting him on base, Heaton loses the chance of having Carmen, a very weak hitter, lead off the next inning.
Instead, he's going to get Samuel, and there's a considerable difference.
Maybe the maximum difference in all of the major leagues from one hitter to the next.
Night and day.
You know, when Carmen hit the ball the first time up, he got some applause from the fans here in Philly.
Missed that by a considerable amount. Strikeout number 3 for Heaton. So the hit batsman doesn't cost him, doesn't give up a hit in the 4th. His team still trails by 3 after 4. This is Labatt Expos Baseball on TSN. Now back to TSN Control for another sports update. There's Bobby. the hitting instructor of the Montreal Expos.
One of the nicest guys you ever want to meet, too. Always got a smile on his face, a good word about something. Always thinking positively.
Law, Fitzgerald, and Heaton to face Don Carmen. The left-hander has given up only 2 hits through 4. Expos have left 3. They had 2 on with nobody out in the first and stranded them. 1 aboard with nobody out in the third and stranded Heaton. Carmen was turned into a reliever. He was a starter until 1983 as Law hits one into right field for Glenn Wilson. 1 away. Carmen was a starter until 83, and then at Reading in Double-A ball he was converted to a reliever, and he didn't start again until last year. There was an injury and they moved him back into the starting rotation for the last half of the season. He went 10-5, and he finds himself as a starter again this year. Been an indecisive career then, not on his part, but on the part of the people who have managed him.
Sometimes it's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole with Carmen. Breaking ball in for a strike. Now, sometimes pitchers can pitch better when they know what their role is going to be. Carmen was prohibited from starting because his arm couldn't take it. It could take relieving, pitching maybe once or 1 or 2 or 3 innings every other day, but they tried to make a starter out of him, hurt his arm. Now he's back in the starting role after a winter of trying to build up that arm and his stamina on the mound. And tonight there's another off-speed pitch, and when you come out of the bullpen, basically you're a 2-pitch pitcher, fastball, hard slider, trying to get ground ball, sinker, maybe occasional sinker and fastball. Well, when you're a starter, you're going to have to come up with other pitches. Something that Ray Miller, pitching coach of the Pirates, has done with that young staff.
Mike Fitzgerald hits a long fly ball to center field. Vaughn Hayes going backwards makes the catch just before the track.
Outside of the strikeouts tonight, Don Carmen has not had an assist from an infielder with the put out at first base. Everything has either been a strikeout or a fly out. So the infielders have not been busy. It's the outfielders.
So strike him out or hit him hard.
Expos going to the bench. Tom Romano will be pinch hitting for Neil Heaton. Romano's had just a 1 at-bat in 4 ball games, been used primarily as a pinch runner this year. He's 0 for 1. Looking for his first major league base hit, and he's overmatched on that pitch, strike 1.
Carmen is now retired. 8 consecutive batters since a single given up to Neil Heaton in the third. Now he's ahead 0-2 on Tom Romano. So Buck Rogers is going to the pen early tonight, earlier than he had hoped.
Got to get something going. And even with 2 down, he goes to the bench, and Romano responds with a strikeout.
Nothing doing this time. Strikeout number 7 for Don Carmen, who's given up 2 hits through 5 and leads 3-0. This is Labatt Expos Baseball on TSN. Thursday's win was not a pretty affair for the Montreal Expos, but it was a win just the same, and these are the comments that Buck Rogers had after it. I watched Rogers in the bullpen in the dugout last night in the 9th inning. I don't think I've ever seen him as fidgety and nervous in the dugout as he was last night.
You can see it all coming apart. We just need a couple more outs and we can just put it in the W column. The Expos won. A capital U for ugly.
Well, they had a 5-2 lead, but they committed 5 errors in the game, 3 of them in the 8th. Bob Sebra is on for Neil Heaton. Heaton went 4, gave up 3 runs on 4 hits, struck out 3 and walked 1, and is done. Sebra's on.
Bob Sebra out of the bullpen. Used as a starter 26 times this year. It's his 35th appearance overall. 6-15 record, but He's got that strikeout pitch when he has that curveball working. 151 strikeouts in 171 innings. So right here, he's called upon by Buck Rogers to hold the Phillies in check. Give the Expos some time to catch up here in the middle innings as we gradually moving on to the latter stages of this ball game. He's going to face the top of the lineup, which is about as potent as anyone in the league when it's really going good, with Samuel, Hayes, and Mike Schmidt. See Buck back in the tunnel.
I guess Buck watched the 4th inning with Heaton pitching and saw those long fly balls to the warning track and decided he could ill afford to send him back out there. And this time of year, you can't afford to fall back any more than 3-0. He's in a hole now and needs to hold the Phils.
It seems with Heaton, especially in his latter starts of the season here, everything seems to come apart all at once. He gives up that big inning. As you can see, New York taking the lead away from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh did lead at one time in that game. The score's 5-2 now in the 4th inning. But with Heaton, he has innings where the opposition comes up with 3-4 runs, and that puts the game away.
That's been one of the things that's plagued Bob Sebra as well. He'll cruise along, have 2 or 3 good innings, and then whammo, he'll walk a couple and get himself into trouble. Juan Samuel, the top of the order. Samuel, a 26-year-old from San Pedro de Macorís, the Dominican Republic. 4th year in the majors, and also his best.
You would think that's the only town in the country. How many ball players are from there? Of course, we know that's not true. Santo Domingo's the capital.
Really?
Went down there once on a vacation, had a great time, played in a golf tournament. Hall of Famer Juan Marichal had a golf tournament down there, and he invited a number of people. Brooks Robinson. I got to hang out with all the biggies.
Samuel hits one to the gap in left center. This will be to the wall, and he's got speed. Samuel digging hard around first. Now he's going to try and take 3. There's the throw. Out of there. Samuel got greedy and got caught.
Now, one of the things you're taught as a player, you don't make the 1st or 3rd out of an inning at 3rd base. Samuel lines this one to the gap. Nichols was playing over towards right center. Here's the relay throw into Ubi Brooks, or over Ubi into second base. Galarraga makes the play. I think what happened to Samuel, he didn't know that Galarraga was behind him. He just saw the throw come in past the cutoff man and took off for 3rd. Galarraga heads up. First baseman should trail the runner down to second base in case of an overthrow. And Galarraga was able to make the play. That goes 8 to 3 to 5.
After a double, so it's a hit, and he's thrown out at 3rd. Bottom line is there's 1 out for Von Hayes. And the bases are clear. Bob Sebra gets some defensive help. Good heads-up play by Galarraga.
First baseman is taught to watch the runner, make sure he touches the bag. Pop up. I believe it's going into foul territory. Yes, it does. Wallach makes the catch, and Hayes is retired. I was saying that first baseman, as the runner rounds the bag, he makes sure he touches the base, number 1. Then he trails him down to second, because the shortstop and second baseman are out there getting the relay throw.
Yep.
If there's an overthrow of the shortstop, the second baseman can back that up. Galarraga heads up. You're taught that from day 1 as a first baseman. Trailed the play down to second, caught the throw that went into second base, and got Samuel at 3rd. Breaking ball to Schmidt is low for a ball.
Mike Schmidt turns 38 on Sunday. The way he's played against the Expos, he might be able to match that number in home runs by then. He's got 33 tonight. A slight exaggeration to be sure, but he's played well against Montreal, and he's 2 for 2 tonight.
Well, defense is lined up. I think that Mike Schmidt will pull the ball. A similar defense they had the last time when in the first inning when he beat out the infield hit. Here's Vance Law almost directly behind second base. Expect Mike to pull the ball over the outside corner. Good pitch from Sebra.
Steber relies on his curveball to a great extent, but it's only effective when his other pitches are working. Check swing foul on a changeup, 2-2. And when the changeup's working, when Steber can get a little juice on his fastball, then the changeup becomes effective, and then he doesn't have to use his good curveball all the time as his biggest weapon. It can become almost his secondary pitch and then becomes more effective because batters aren't sitting on it.
More pitches you can control and get over the plate consistently makes you that much more of a difficult pitcher to hit. Change speeds, different locations. There's that curveball you were talking about. Comes in a little bit low. Count now goes to 3 balls and 2 strikes. Now he gets the hitter to a situation where normally when you only have one pitch working, a hitter like Mike Schmidt can sit back and wait on the fastball. If he has more than one pitch working, throws the breaking ball, misses ball 4, the hitter is confused, and that could be the difference between a home run and a long fly ball.
Steber's nemesis comes up to grab him, his 65th base on balls given up this season. That's the most on the Expos staff. The first in this game. With 2 out, there's a runner aboard for Lance Parrish, the catcher. Struck out and grounded out to the first baseman. Parrish has been susceptible to the ground ball this season. Although this isn't a double play situation, he has grounded into 23 double plays this season.
Big years with the Detroit Tigers. Maybe it's going to take him a little longer to adjust to the National League. Line drive, this one will go foul.
He's had as many as 32 home runs in a season, as many as 114 runs batted in. But on the average, you'd expect out of Lance 25 homers, 95 to 100 runs batted in. You look at his stats this season. See 16 homers and 63 RBIs.
Philadelphia is considered one of the better hitting parks in the league. Line drive to left, Raines. Sinking liner. It's going to lead to another run. Mike Schmidt rounding third. He'll score easily. That ball had a tremendous amount of overspin. And Raines approached it kind of casually as if he was going to make the play. So it will go as a double, with Mike Schmidt scoring for the second time tonight.
Well, Raines played that as a catchable ball all the way. Otherwise, he might have kept the run from scoring and kept it from being a double.
Almost broke like a curveball. Came in and dropped right off the table. Raines diving for it, can't come up with it. Schmidt off with the crack of the bat with 2 outs, scores all the way from first, and Parrish picks up another RBI.
And the Phillies lead the Expos 4-0 in the 5th. A 2-run homer by Mike Schmidt. A run-scoring double by Parrish. A ground ball that scored a run in the second by Ken Jackson. And the Phillies up by 4. They've chased Heaton. They're facing Sebra. There's a fly ball from Glenn Wilson to right center. Tracking it is Webster, and he makes the basket catch at the track. Nicely done. 4-0, the Phillies lead after 5. This is Labatt Expos Baseball on TSN. Now let's go to TSN Control for another sports update. Don Carmen, the man on the mound for the Philadelphia Phillies, leading 4-0 through 5. He's given up just 2 hits. He's struck out 7, has induced 8 fly balls, no ground balls yet. Could he be the player of the game? Labatt player of the game for the Phillies tonight will receive these fine Remington products: the Micro Screen and Lady Remington cordless rechargeable shavers, and the Travel Plus hair dryer, foldable and compact with dual voltage and heat settings. Top of the order coming up in the 6th. Tim Raines to lead off. Expos need some production. They need it soon. They're down 4-0. The Cardinals lost today. The Mets are leading. And it's the time of the year when You can haul out the cliches for every game. They're all must-win games, particularly when the leader loses. There's no tomorrow. Their backs are against the wall. They'll have to give 110%.
You got any more?
The man, the schedule maker, did his job this year. You couldn't have scripted a better last week of the season.
Okay, Howard.
Let's get them all out of the way right now.
Don Carmen, 7 strikeouts tonight. He's walked just 1, and that was Wallach. That was Raines leading off the ball game.
Expos got 2 aboard. Nobody out and stranded them.
He's had at least 1 strikeout in every inning but the 3rd.
High fly ball from Raines, way back. Jelks is back at the wall. Can't make the catch. Extra bases for Raines. He's around second, on his way to third. A stand-up triple for Tim Raines.
Maybe Jelks' inexperience as an outfielder was a difference on this play. Now Raines touched it off pretty well. He thought he had a home run. His ball was hit very high into the air. See Jelks as he gets back to the wall. He had 1 more step to go. He might have been able to make the play off the wall, and Raines will come up with his 8th triple of the year. So the Expos do indeed get something going here in the top half of the 6th inning as Tim Raines leads it off with a triple.
Just the 3rd hit off of Don Carmen. The right part of the order for producing runs is up.
It's Claude Osteen, classy left-hander, known mostly for his days with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Popped up Rick Shue in foul territory.
So the Expos enter this game 3.5 back, could close to 3 tonight. And we talked to Buck Rogers before the game and asked him about needing help from other teams.
Well, we're going to have help from other people, but the main thing is we're going to have to win the ball games in Philadelphia so that series in St. Louis means something, and we can go back and to Montreal against the Cubs, and you know, whatever happens happens. But we have to be in a position to 2 games or less when we go into St. Louis and make that thing mean something.
And they're not going to get there unless they come back and win this one. They have an opportunity today. They got some help from the Cubs and Andre Dawson, and they have to capitalize on that. 4-0. Phillies lead. Runner at third, 1 away. Hubie Brooks has struck out and flied out and is at the plate with an 0-1 count. Inside from Carmen. No, it's not. It caught a corner. 0-2. Hubie backed up as though it was right at his chest.
As Buck said, you hate to go in a series in St. Louis where you have to sweep all 4 ball games. Just get yourself back in the race. What's left of it. I don't think he feels, although the Expos have played very well against St. Louis, realistically it'd be hard to get 4 in a row. Base hit through the middle. So Hubie drives in Tim Raines, and the Expos are on the scoreboard.
4-1. Phillies lead. 1 out and a runner on first base as Tim Wallach comes up.
Base hit, high fastball. Try to get it by Hubie, slams it back through the middle. Carmen is a little late. For Raines, the 115th time he has scored this year. His career high is 133.
For Hubie, RBI number 59 on an injury-shortened season. Wallach hits that inside pitch hard and foul. Wallach has struck out twice.
And Carmen has thrown inside to a number of Expo hitters tonight with that fastball. And this is a time of ball game, 3rd time around through the lineup, where that fastball might have lost a couple of miles per hour. And all of a sudden, the pitch he was striking hitters out on and making them foul off or miss altogether starting to hit a little bit harder.
There's another fly ball. This is high, and he didn't miss that by much. He hit it high, and it's a fly ball to left. So what could happen if they can get around and hit them in the right part of the bat is those F8s, those fly balls to center and to left, can become home runs. Not for Wallach this time. 2 away. Hubie Brooks still stands at first, and here's Galarraga, who's certainly capable of turning a fly ball into a home run.
Galarraga with 13 home runs this year, bothered earlier in the season with that bad thumb, really curtailed his power. Hard shot to short. Kenny Jackson over to Samwell for the fourth.
The Expos get on the board. A triple by Raines. He's driven home by Hubie Brooks. The deficit is now 3. It's the middle of the 6th. This is Labatt Expos Baseball on TSN. There's Peter Pasquarelli, who writes the National League beat in the Sporting News. And is always on top of the happenings around the National League.
Peter and I go back to Baltimore, 1979, when he first started out as a sports writer. He covered the Orioles, and of course he had a pretty good season that year. We went to the World Series, so he was always thought of as a pretty good guy because he didn't have anything poor to say about the team that was going to the World Series.
Little grooming going on at the mound as Bob Sebra has the grounds crew fix things up. Sebra is on for Neil Heaton, who lasted 4. The Expos are down 4-1. It was interesting at the outset of the program to hear Peter Pasquarelli talk about some of the rumors. Pete Rose to Chicago?
Ooh, I think there's a connection there with Dallas Green.
Yeah.
Dallas Green and Pete here in Philadelphia.
1980 World Series.
That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? I heard that Pete is also, kind of on the outs in Cincinnati with Marge Schott. A few problems there, and so maybe Pete Rose on his way to Chi-Town. See that target on the seat? Now, he won't tell you where it is right away, but that's in the upper deck in left field. Greg Lazinski, the Bull.
What time's the flight leave for that spot?
Ooh.
Batting for the Phillies, first baseman Rick Hughes.
That's how far away that is, folks.
So far away, nobody goes there. Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. And Rick Shue leads off the bottom of the 6th with a base hit up the middle off of Bob Sebra. Four to 1 Phillies, and the leadoff man's aboard with the bottom 3 in the order on their way to the plate.
The Phillies are going to go to the bench with the right-hander Sebra coming into the game, and one of the Phillies that's had a pretty good year this year, Milt Thompson, will step to the plate and pinch hit for Greg Jeltz. Now, one of the things that manager Lee Elia is doing is getting one of his better defensive players into the game in place of Jeltz, who hasn't played that much of the outfield, and it showed on that triple by Tim Raines.
Thompson, a former Atlanta Brave, came over with Steve Bedrosian for Ozzie Virgil, and what's turned out to be a pretty good trade, as Bedrock out of the pen has become one of the best relievers in baseball. And Thompson has been a decent leadoff man, as his average would indicate.
He's hitting .303, and he's stolen 42 bases. And he's also broken one more bat.
He was actually the leadoff man most of the time until Lee Elia took over, and since then Juan Samuel has been in the leadoff spot almost exclusively.
Milt Thompson from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C.
Four to 1, the Phillies lead here. 5-2, the last score we had, the Mets leading the Pirates. Things have settled down there considerably. That's the first strikeout for Bob Sebra.
Now batting for the Phillies.
One away, bottom of the 6th inning, as the shortstop Ken Jackson comes to the plate for the 3rd time. He's been hit, has grounded out, and has an RBI. Throw over to check Rick Shue. Seems to be all right.
Here's an excellent breaking ball by Sebra. Had Jackson backing away, and it breaks over for a strike. Watch the reaction of the hitter. Looks like a fastball up and in. Hey, they don't throw breaking balls like that down in Double-A.
Whoa, let me stand back and have a look at that.
The rookie wrote home and said, "Mom, I'll be home soon. They're throwing curveballs."
One away and an 0-1 count on Kenny Jackson. Oh, 0-2. Have to study some tapes of that.
Well, the Phillies will be looking to strengthen themselves the pitching department, as will most ball clubs. Jackson hits this breaking ball. This one was over the inner half of the plate. He strokes it down in the left field corner.
They're going to wave Shue home. There's the throw. Out of there. Gunned him down on the relay and keep the run from scoring. It remains 4-1, and the Expos get the 2nd out.
Good work by Tim Raines in the outfield. Sometimes when you go into a visiting park, you don't know all the idiosyncrasies of the ballpark. Smash down the line. Raines plays this one well off the wall. Gets it in good style to Eubie Brooks, who turns and fires a BB to Mike Fitzgerald. There in plenty of time to get Rick Shue.
Jackson hit it hard for a double. Moved to 3rd. On the play at home plate, the Expos cut down the run. There's 2 away, and Don Carmen pops one up to Tim Raines in left field. Thanks to some great defensive play by Raines and Brooks and Fitzgerald, they gun down a run, keep it from coming in, and continue to trail by 3 after 6. This is Labatt Expos Baseball on TSN. Back to New York. It was 5-2 when last we checked in, with the Mets leading, and at Shea Stadium, this is Dave Magadan. And there it goes into the night. Not quite out of the park, but off the wall. And Magadan clears the bases. Tuffle comes in to score. 8-2. The Mets lead the Pirates. And might just call that one history. Mets are in good shape tonight. The Cardinals have lost. The Mets can move to within 2.5. The Expos can move to within 3, but they're down 4-1 here in Philadelphia.
Carmen pitching very effectively against Montreal. Sometimes a defensive play can pick up a ball club, make you really want to come on offensively. Milt Thompson now in center field is going to make the catch. Von Hayes is moved over to the left, and Greg Jeltz is out of the ballgame.
From the top of Veterans Stadium, you've probably identified that as Philadelphia at night.
Downtown Philly.
And the lights are on in the vet, where the Phils lead the Expos 4-1. They've out hit them 8-4. Chili Davis has hit a home run, his 22nd. San Francisco and Atlanta tied 2-2 as the Giants come closer and closer to clinching first championship since '71. While the Expos only have 4 hits, just one of them tonight has come from the bottom of the order, number 5 and down, as this is popped up to Juan Samuel. If you look at the last 10 games, The top 4, numbers 1 through 4 in the Expo order, as you see Jeff Parrott warming up. Number 1 through 4 in the last 10 games have batted .262 and produced 65% of the Expo runs. The bottom of the order, numbers 5 through 9, in the last 10 games are hitting just .191, and they're only hitting that high because they got 8 hits last night. .160 through the previous 9. In a pennant race, the bottom of the order must produce, and Mike Fitzgerald has just hit one to the deepest part of the ballpark, and Milt Thompson is there to make the catch. Just another long out. They're hitting Carmen hard, but they can't get the runs. 1-2-3 inning for Don Carmen. Time for the 7th inning stretch in Philadelphia. This is Labatt Expos Baseball on TSN. Now let's go to TSN Control for another sports update. This day in baseball, the 25th of September, now back to 1965. At a reported 60 years of age, Satchel Paige became the oldest player in the majors. Went to the mound for Kansas City against the Red Sox. Gave up just 1 hit to Carl Yastrzemski.
A lot of people gave up hits to Carl Yastrzemski.
Philadelphia leading Montreal 4-1. Bottom of the 7th inning. Bob Sebra working for the 3rd inning. The Philly fanatic with a fan.
Second baseman Juan Samuel.
Top of the order for the Phillies. To the plate, Juan Samuel to lead things off in the 7th.
Samuel with a base running blunder his last time. Dropped the double to the gap in left center. Tried to continue on the 3rd. It was thrown off, leading off the inning. Something you don't want to happen. But for Samuel, it's his 34th double a year. He has 15 triples. 28 home runs. Who said the balls aren't lively this year? Jumping out of the bullpen. And 98 runs batted in for Samuel.
In New York, Kevin McReynolds has hit his 2nd home run. The Mets lead 9-2 over the Pittsburgh Pirates. They will most surely pick up a game on the St. Louis Cardinals tonight. Samuel swings and misses. Strikeout number 2 as Samuel gives the bat a ride. Strikes out for the 152nd time this season.
He took the bat after this at bat and just heaves it to the backstop. The helmet followed.
It's not as if he doesn't strike out very much. Vaughn Hayes is yet to hit, even though his team has 8 hits spread through the lineup. What a stance.
Say spread. To drive a truck through there.
Scoop from Galarraga to Sebra. 2 gone.
Galarraga shouting encouragement at Bob Sebra. Actually, he's telling him, I'm going to be way off the bag for Mike Schmidt. So anything hit over here, you better get over. The Expos infield defensive alignment has 3 infielders on the left side of second base.
If he can go the other way, there's a hole the size of Pittsburgh.
I can tell you with 2 outs and nobody on, Mike Schmidt is not thinking about going to Pittsburgh. He's trying to go out beyond the left field
downtown.
wall.
Freddie Tolliver and Wally Ritchie. Tolliver number 43. The closest man to you, the left-hander, is Wally Ritchie. warming in that Philadelphia bullpen. Just in case, although this game is almost getting on to Bedrosian time. 4-1 Phils, bottom of the 7th, 2 out. Mike Schmidt at the plate.
A number of the Expos were watching the Cub game this afternoon in the clubhouse, and Andre Dawson hit that home run in the first inning. They were saying, bring in Lee Smith right now.
Yeah.
Big closers. The Expos wanted him in there, although the Cubs didn't have to use him today.
They closed with Frank DiPino,
and he did an excellent job.
The Cards barely escaped last night. The Pittsburgh Pirates had them on the ropes until rookie Lance Johnson drove in a run in the bottom of the 9th to win it for St. Louis, but they lost today in a close one. The Expos won last night, but they're behind by 3 here on a night when they can close to within 3. And of course, you know the importance of seizing the opportunity. Schmidt hits this one way back to center field, deepest part of the park for Reed Nichols, and he makes the catch 2 steps from the track. Sebra has a 1-2-3 7th inning. It's getting late. The Expos are down by 3. This is Labatt Expos Baseball on TSN. The Expos were behind 1-0 in the 3rd inning when Mike Schmidt came up to face Neil Heaton with Vaughn Hayes on, having walked, and Schmidt deposited this pitch over the wall for his 33rd home run of the season, the 528th of his illustrious career, and the Phillies had a 3-0 lead. Meantime, on the mound, Don Carmen was helping Schmidt and company. Carmen has just pitched 7 innings of 4 hit balls, striking out 7. 8 fly balls, hasn't had a ground ball yet, and it could have been 5-1 for Carmen and the Phils, but for some great defense in the 6th. Ken Jackson doubled to the corner. Tim Raines to Hubie Brooks, and they gun down Rick Shue, trying to come home, keeping the score 4-1 and within reach. But there's only 6 outs left for the Expos as we go to the top of the 8th, and pinch hitter Dave Engel leads things off.
Engel 10 for 35 as a pinch hitter this year with a home run, 11 runs batted in, but not looking for the homer. He's just trying to get on base, get something started here for the Expos in the 8th. Carmen still pretty good fastball. I wouldn't say he's throwing as hard as he was early in the game. If he throws it to good spots like that, up and in, can still be effective.
Methinks Don Carmen would not be suited to Wrigley Field. Based on tonight's performance with all these fly balls, he wants a vast park to work in.
Well, this is more of a vast park than Wrigley Field, but Veterans Stadium is considered a hitter's ballpark as he strikes out his 8th Expo of the night, Don Carmen.
Carmen's now thrown 101 pitches. That's why Lee Elia has action in the bullpen. He's given up 4 hits, and he's given up some long fly balls. Also struck out 8.
Good fastball. Engel, good low ball hitter. 2 of those strikes were fastballs right about belt high. Trying to keep it up in the strike zone against him. And here's Tim Raines. Been on base twice.
Tripled and scored in the 6th, was stranded in the 1st after walking. In the middle, he flied out in the 3rd.
The Expos had that big opportunity in the 1st inning with a walk to Raines and a single by Webster, but they couldn't cash in. Line drive. Milt Thompson, 2 down.
Still no ground balls. Carmen gets the first 2 in the 8th, and Mitch Webster comes up. Through September, the Expos have run into some pretty good pitching performances. I think of Dwight Gooden shutting them down, and you expect that, but Kevin Gross last Sunday, Mike Bilecki, Don Carmen may just be added to that list.
Could it be the Expo hitters are feeling the pennant race pressure and just tightening up a bit at the plate? They can't get anything of consequence going, or A sequence of base on balls, somebody working their way on base, followed by base hits. This ball's well hit the left field. Hayes back.
And it's out of the park. Home run for Mitch Webster. And the Expos close to within 2 as Webster hits his 15th of the season. Finally, one of the fly balls, and they've hit Carmen hard, gets out of the park.
Well, Mitch Webster, he said, his 15th homer of the year, his 7th as a right-hand hitter, and he's been up many more times left-handed. See Von Hayes thinking this might not clear the wall. It barely does. 1 foot or 20 foot. It's still a home run for Mitch Webster.
Lee Elia comes to the mound, and he wants the ball. He's seen it up. The Expos have closed to within 2. Don Carmen has pitched well, but he's walked a fine line with many long fly balls to the track or near it. And Carmen gets an ovation as he heads for the dugout. Seven 2/3 for Don Carmen. Fan Appreciation Day is coming up in Montreal. If you're an Expo fan, you'll no doubt be down to see the Cubs and the Expos play on Sunday, the 4th of October, the last day of the regular season. The Expos hope you're coming to see them try and clinch the National League East. As is the tradition on Fan Appreciation Day, a host of gifts will be presented to the fans by a drawing from amongst tickets for Sunday's game in Montreal. Mitch Webster hits the solo shot that chases Don Carmen. So as the change is made on the mound, we'll pause and allow you to have a look at this. Did you ever make one of those tapes?
I've made a few.
Kent Tecalve is on to replace Don Carmen and try and put this away for the Philadelphia Phillies with 2 out in the 8th inning. It's 4-2. The Phils lead as Hubie Brooks is up after the home run by Mitch Webster, his 15th. Expos need some clutch 2-out hitting.
Closing to within 2. If they get a man on, they bring the tying run to the plate. Tecalve outside. Tecalve making his 85th appearance of the year, which leads the National League, and he ranks 4th all time with 938 appearances. He ranks 2nd only to Hoyt Wilhelm in all-time relief appearances.
Samuel throws out Hubie Brooks. Tecalve gets the out he needs in the 8th. So the Expos are down to 3 outs. They're trailing 4-2 for the Philadelphia Phillies in a game you can say they must win. 4-2 Phils, middle of the 8th. This is Labatt Expos Baseball on TSN. Welcome back to Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia, where the Expos trail the Philadelphia Phillies 4-2 as we go to the bottom half of the 8th inning. And the 3rd Expo pitcher is on. Heaton started, went 4. Bob Sebra got through 3 innings, gave up 1 run on 4 hits, and now Jeff Parrott, another right-hander, tries to shut down the Phils and give his offense a chance to get going in the 9th.
Parrott, he of the blazing fastball, 54 strikeouts in 58, but 26 base on balls. So you can see he does have a problem with his control from time to time. Basically a 2-pitch pitcher, fastball, curveball, occasional changeup. He hasn't really mastered that pitch. As you can see right here, he's going to throw it.
There's Mitch Webster, who closed the gap to 4-2 with his 15th home run, a solo shot with 2 out in the 8th inning. The Expos still need a little more. Again, the Cardinals lost 2-1 in Chicago this afternoon. The Mets are running away from the Pirates. Opportunity is there to close to within 3 for Buck Rogers and company. His rotation in this all lefty weekend all lefties he'll face. Tomorrow it's Shane Raleigh against Pascual Perez. Perez going on 3 days rest so that he can be rested 4 days and pitch in St. Louis. Bruce Ruffin goes against Jay Tibbs, who gets the start on Sunday. So the rotation for St. Louis, and the Expos are hoping this means a lot. When they go into St. Louis, they'll have Martinez and Smith for a doubleheader, Heaton and Perez on Wednesday and Thursday, and we'll bring you those games on TSN on Wednesday and Thursday night. As a pinch hitter comes in for Lance Parrish, it's catcher Darryl Dalton. Dalton won a game in Chicago with a home run in the 11th in the middle of the week.
Dalton's had numerous physical problems. I guess you could point towards his knee problem. Had major surgery on his knee and still wears a brace. You can see on that left knee. Hard smash through into right field for a base hit. So Dalton leads off the 8th inning with a base hit. So the youngster trying to bounce back from surgery, and you know, catchers with bad knees, you wonder how long they're going to last. Here's a good look at that knee brace. Heavily wrapped. Looks like a brace that a football player might wear.
Darren's only 25 years old. He's still early in his career. And he's standing on first base right now with Glenn Wilson at the plate. Wilson singled in the 2nd, grounded out in the 3rd, flied out in the 5th inning. As Parrott throws over.
Good hands by Galarraga, digging that throw out of the dirt very casually to spell trouble.
Foul ball. It's like watching a hockey game behind the plexiglass from the bullpen. Expo relievers look on.
You know what I always like when you watch the hockey games?
What's that?
When the wingers and defensemen collide in the corners and they have the camera right at the glass.
Yeah.
And you see their faces all scrunched up against the glass.
And they loosen up the boards in the glass, so there's
yeah.
a huge bang and clatter when it happens, and it sounds like a...
You could see those guys are really serious about that game that they're playing, eh?
Dalton is running, ground ball. Parrott turns, a high throw, but he'll still be able to make the double play. Law turned it around. Wilson was only halfway. A shot back to Parrott. He threw it high, but Law brought it down, and it's a 1-4-3 double play.
Now, they weren't holding Dalton on, so he takes off. Maybe a hit and run was on, but Parrott still realizes he has a chance to make the play. Tries to take Law out at second base, but good play by Jeff Parrott on the mound.
Helps his own cause, so there's 2 away in the bottom of the 8th. Speaking of hockey, TSN's hockey schedule opens right next door to the Veterans Stadium here on the 15th of October. The Spectrum.
The Broad Street Bullies?
Yeah. Philadelphia Flyers and the New York Islanders. We'll be bringing you 40 games this winter.
You'll be there.
You bet.
Get to do anything at the Cap Center in Washington?
Don't think we get there. We see the Capitals, though.
Come over and pay you a visit.
You can come on up to New York.
It's a little far in the wintertime. There's always a threat of snow. Poor driving weather.
2 away, bottom of the 8th. Batter is Rick Shue, who's singled and flied out twice, and now he gets a base on balls. First given up by Jeff Parrott.
3rd walk of the night by Expo pitchers. Heaton, Sebra, and Parrott have all walked once.
Center fielder Milt Thompson, who came on in the 6th to replace Greg Jelks, is now up for the 2nd time. He was a strikeout victim. Bob Sebra got him on strikes. 4-2 Philadelphia. Late stages of this game. 10 games to go. 9 after tonight for the Montreal Expos. 4 in St. Louis. 3 at home to Chicago. 2 more here in Philadelphia. Thompson misses, and the count is 1-1.
The first pitch of the at-bat was on the inner half, and he missed with a strike. He comes back with a changeup. Has Thompson well out in front. You saw the ball tail off at the end, and he misses. He fouls this pitch off, and Thompson's in the hole. A ball and 2 strikes with 2 outs. Now, this time of year, I've been in a situation Thompson is in. He's hitting .303. You get to that last week in the season, everybody wants to hit 300. In fact, one season, he fouls this one off. I went to my last game hitting .299. And Earl Weaver came to me before the game. We had been eliminated. And he came to me before the game. This is in 1975. And he said, you need a 1 for 2. If you get a hit your first time up, you're coming out of the game. So I laid down a bunt, beat it out for a hit. I was leading off in that year with Baltimore, and got to watch the rest of a doubleheader on the final day of the season. 17 innings of baseball. But I hit 300.
Milt's seen his average drop just a tad tonight as he struck out.
In fact, I've been in that situation more than once. It was 304 one year, 302 another year. So I was going to that last week with
it's a fine line.
A lot on the line.
A lot on the line for the Expos. They're down 4-2. 3.5 games out in the National League East. The runner's going. It's fouled away by Thompson. They'll either be 4 back or 3 back when this game is over. You know where they need to be.
Each game is precious. I've been on a team that's lost the division by 1 game.
Runners off and running again. Thompson fouls another one back. And Rick Shue retreats to first. Since divisional play started in 1969, only 1 team has come from further than 4 games back to win a championship and a pennant. That's the Yankees of '78. They were 6.5 back. A single just past Hubie Brooks. The runner was going, so Shue is around to third. There's runners at first and third with 2 out. There was nothing pretty about that, and it probably hurt the hands of Milt Thompson, but he's got a single, keeps that average above 300, and is aboard.
Scratch 1 bat, but put another hit in the H column. Milt Thompson fights this ball off into center field. We got a pinch hitter for Ken Jackson. It'll be Keith Hughes, who was acquired from the New York Yankees on June the 10th. It's been up and down between Maine and Philadelphia. Been very effective with runners in scoring position at .298 average, but he's hit .538 with runners in scoring position. Mike Fitzgerald makes the play, and that average will drop some.
So the Phillies strand a couple, but they're in the driver's seat. They lead 4-2. This game means much more to the Expos, and they're coming up in the top of the 9th, down by 2. This is Labatt Expos Baseball on TSN. Now let's go to TSN Control for another sports update. Let's take a look around the National League. Cincinnati has defeated Houston 4-1. The Mets pounding Pittsburgh 10-2 and continuing to count. So the Mets can close to within 2.5. San Francisco a step closer to nailing down the West title. They've gone out in front of Atlanta 4-2. Here it's 4-2. The Philadelphia Phillies lead the Montreal Expos as we go to the top of the 9th inning. And a bedrock, Steve Bedrosian, one of the finest relievers in the game, a former member of the Atlanta Braves, is on to try and nail this down. And the Phillies have made considerable changes around him. Darren Dalton is now catching. Vaughn Hayes has moved into play first base. Steve Jeltz is in at short. Greg Gross has gone out into left field. Tim Wallach is the batter. The Expos badly need a rally.
You saw that column on saves. 39 saves for Bedrosian. That leads the major leagues. Hard smash. Jeltz. Long throw. Infield base hit for Tim Wallach.
So the Expos get a man aboard and can bring the tying run to the plate on a broken bat single by Tim Wallach, and almost an outstanding defensive play by Steve Jeltz.
So Wallach hustling down the line on that very sore left ankle. Watch the bat get sawed off right here. Left with the handle. But give him some credit. He hustles down the line, and the throw is off, or else it would have been a spectacular play by Steve Jeltz, who's now in the game at shortstop.
The Expos' two most productive RBI men to lead things off in the ninth. Wallach gets aboard. Galarraga is up. Like to keep this rally going.
One of the problems for Bedrosian he's had over the years is the number of home runs he's given up.
Galarraga would love to turn around one of his 90-plus fastballs and send it over the wall.
This year he's given up 11 home runs in 87 innings. His fastball, although it's pretty hard, sometimes it's fairly straight. That one had a little tail to it. It sank out of the strike zone. The count is now 2-0. To make it 3-0. The Expos want to turn the lights out on the Phillies. There's a called strike.
It's JFK Stadium over on the other side of the spectrum, and a concert featuring U2 just beginning. Those are all the flickering lights you could see.
Count is now full of Galarraga. 3 balls, 2 strikes. Bedrosian is the challenging type pitcher. He just goes for the middle of the plate as hard as he can throw it.
Fouled back. The count remains full. Wallach at first. Nobody out. Top of the ninth. 4-2 Philadelphia. Herm Winningham is on deck. Right-handed pitcher. Nichols will come out. Winningham getting set to come up. Bedrosian gets strikeout number 1. 1 away in the ninth. Expos down to 2 outs.
It's a good look at the swing by Galarraga. Appeared to be a slider that broke out of the strike zone. So Bedrosian, it's Galarraga the chase a pitch. And there's 1 away as Herm Winningham now steps to the plate as a pinch hitter.
Wallach stands at first. The Expos desperately need to tie this game. Outside, ball 1, 1-0. Don Carmen handcuffed the Expos. 5 hits over his 7 2/3. Passed the baton to Kent Tecalve, who got 1 out in the 8th, and then Bedrock has come on here in the 9th. Gave up a single to Wallach, struck out Galarraga, and is now facing Herm Winningham, and the count is 2-0.
Second straight hitter. He's fallen behind. Ooh, good cut by Winningham. I was going to say, if he wants to go for it, now's the pitch.
2-1. Winningham's provided some heroics earlier this season. I think of the game in San Francisco on the West Coast trip, the tail end of it. Expos had lost 2 in a row. A 7th inning 3-run homer by Winningham with 2 out. Got his team going.
He's always hit pretty well here in Philadelphia.
It's better here than any other park in the major leagues.
Now with 2 strikes, 2 big swings, it might be time to cut down your swing and go for the base hit.
1 away. 2-2 pitch from Bedrosian, struck him out. 2 strikeouts, 2 away. The Expos trail 4-2, and they're down to their last out.
Actually foul tipped. The pitch was held on to just barely by Darren Dalton. I used to hate when that happened.
Bryn Smith with his rally cap. Vance Law hits this one to right field. Glenn Wilson is back. He's near the track, and he makes the catch for the final out. The ball game is over. The Expos fail to gain ground on the St. Louis Cardinals. They'll remain 4 back in 3rd place in the National League East as the Phillies, Don Carmen, Steve Bedrosian, team up to beat them 4-2.
Well, tonight the Expos ran into a hot pitcher. Their offense hasn't been clicking on all cylinders of late. And Don Carmen, Kent DeColvey, and Steve Bedrosian combined allow the Expos just a couple of runs tonight, and they win. Phillies win it 4-2. You got to get ahead of teams like this early in the ball game. Here count the days so they can go home. If they can knock you off, they're going to give it their best try if they can get the lead early in the ball game.
Well, the Expos aren't dead yet, but they're indeed in the infirmary 4 games back. TSN Expos Baseball has been brought to you by Petro-Canada, dealers and agents. Our energy is Canada. Expos Baseball is a special presentation of the Sports Network produced in association with TV Labatt and is protected by copyright. Any use of this broadcast without permission is prohibited. The final score from Philadelphia, the Phillies 4, the Expos 2. The winning pitcher, Don Carmen, now 12-11. Neil Heaton is the loser, now 12-10. The Labatt player of the game for the Montreal Expos is Mitch Webster. He'll receive a Bulova Quartz watch. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, Don Carmen, he'll receive fine Remington products. Our next Expos telecast on TSN will be Wednesday, September 30th at 8:30 Eastern, when the St. Louis Cardinals will host the Montreal Expos. The next Blue Jays telecast will be Monday, the 28th of September, 7:30 Eastern. Toronto will host the Milwaukee Brewers. Thanks for tuning in from Philadelphia. I'm Jim Hughson for Ken Singleton. So long from Philadelphia.